Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to another how to build guide. It's been a while since I've done one of these videos. So for today we'll be looking at Luna. She's one of the highest single target DPS unit in the game and is one of the easiest to build. She is an ice type warrior unit with a very interesting skill set. One of her skills makes her a very powerful unit even against neutral and disadvantaged elements. I'll talk more about that a bit later, but for now, let's have a look at her skills and just see what makes her a strong unit. So Luna's first skill, Infinity Slash, attacks an enemy 1 to 3 times. Now this is completely random and it decreases cooldown of her skills based on the number of hits. So if you hit twice, that's 2 turn decrease, and 3 hits, that's a 3 turn decrease. This is really important for her S3, and you'll see soon as to why. Now one thing to note about this is that depending on the number of hits, changes the power of this skill. If she only hits once, it only does 70% of her power. If it hits 2 times, that's 140%. And 3 hits is 210% of her power. So with this in mind, she can either make you very disappointed or someone that can put a smug on your face. However, if you are very unlucky, then she can make up for that lost damage on the next turn. It's a 1 out of 9 chances of getting 1 hit twice in a row, so it's not all that bad. Most of her overall damage will come from this skill, so if you are thinking of which skill to enhance first, I would definitely max this one. More so if you are planning to use her for PvE purposes. At max enhancement, she gets an extra 35% more damage from this skill. And what's so good about this is that getting 3 hits can easily outdamage her S3. And comes very close when using S3 with Soulburn. Seeing that this is only her basic attack, you gotta admit, this packs a hell lot of punch. I mean, if you think about it, imagine what happens if she performs a dual attack. Not only will she dish out a lot more damage, but can also reduce the cooldown of her other skill, more specifically her S3. Now one of the things in my opinion that separates her from a lot of the DPS right now is that she is one of those very few units with a defensive skill. Her second skill, Dragon Knight's Will, passively increases her crit hit chance by 20% while HP is above 50% and increase crit hit resist by 20% if below 50% HP. That crit hit resist can be a lifesaver, especially if using her in PvP and Guild Wars. The powerful part here is that there's no icon buff, so you can't strip it off. It's hidden and she will always have it as long as her HP is below 50%. If you have units in your team that can boost crit hit resist, such as DN, this can add on top of Luna's S2 passive, which makes her more harder to take out. Since this skill also increases her crit hit chance, this makes her really easy to build. Her S2 plus her base crit stat gives her a total of 35%. I mean, with this you pretty much already have a good start. If you enhance this skill to max, she gets 10% more, so 45% crit chance. Now talking about skill enhance, in my opinion, I would leave this last, or at least until you have the gears for her. This is just a personal preference, but for you, you might want to max it first. For me, this way I get a clear idea how much crit I am missing and adjust it by enhancing this skill. Of course, ideally, you want to max enhance this skill and leave her crit chance at 70%. But some of you may not want to invest that much molas, or you may not have enough. So this is something that you may want to consider if that's the case. You can also take it a step further, like you can pair Luna with someone that can increase crit hit chance. This way you don't have to focus on crit hit chance at all and just have it at 20%, since 50% comes from the crit buff and 30% from her passive if you max enhance this skill. This way you can focus on bumping up her damage, or if you prefer, make her extra thick. However, doing this, well, it kinda does make Luna less flexible and very reliant on that buffer unit. So depending on what kind of team you are using her and where you want to use her, this might not work for you. Now next up, Luna's S3, Ragnar Spear, is a hard-hitting skill that has an 80% chance to inflict defense break. You can increase this to 100% at +4 enhance if you want, but I would do it more for the extra damage and not her defense break. So pretty much, I would go all the way and fully max it. She needs all the extra damage she can get to make sure she can one-shot priority targets in PvP and Guild War. Awakening her 3 times gives an extra effect on this skill, where she will always use a dominant element. Now what this means is that her element do not matter when she uses this skill. It's completely ignored. There are several advantages to this. First is bonus crit chance, more damage, and if you don't crit, you have a higher chance to do a crushing hit instead. What that means is you will do 30% more damage from your normal hit. Now I don't think this will give you any better chance to land a defense break though, at least not in my experience. Effectiveness and effect resistance I think is left untouched, but if you are well informed with this kind of thing, feel free to share and clear it up. I appreciate it since I'm not quite sure, to be honest. So yeah, coming back, this skill deals a lot of damage, primarily because it uses a dominant element and makes her powerful even against a disadvantaged element. Now most of the time you would want to use this skill to do as much damage as you can. More specifically in PvP or Guild War, you want to use this to nuke out a single target, preferably a squishy one or a priority target. Now depending on how you gear her, she can dish out around 10 to 15k damage with soul burn, and this is not including defense break or attack buff. Now I did touch on which skills to enhance first, but I just want to talk about which skill to max in order. Now if you want her more focused on PvE contents such as Raid, Wyvern, Hall of Trials, etc., she will be more useful if you invest on her S1. Now this is because PvE contents is longer and you'd rather invest in a skill that you can consistently use. But if you're building her more towards PvP contents, so PvP and Guild War, skill enhancing her S3 will be better. This is because her role in PvP is to take out a single priority target, either to disrupt or just simply take out that one hero who is more likely to wipe out your team. So the extra damage from this skill will help a lot. Luna's S2 is more like your safety net. If your gears gives ton of crit chance, then you don't really need to invest on this skill, but if that's not the case, then this skill will help you boost it up. And with that out of the way, let's have a look at gearing Luna. There are plenty of ways really. The usual DPS build works, attack and crit set. Now one thing to note about crit set is that since she has a passive that increases her crit hit chance, most likely you might not need this. The only time when you would give her crit set is if the substats from her gears do not give much crit chance. As long as her crit chance reaches 70%, then she's all good. Attack set is good to increase her overall damage of course, and is easily obtained from Adventure Quest if you're a new player. She is a nuker, a thick nuker I should say, so any extra damage is always welcome. The other option you can use is speed set instead of attack set. This is more useful towards wyverns since the boss is pretty fast, and if you want to complete the run before he puts up his shield, then speed set is the one to go. It's also great in PvP content since the faster Luna is, the better for her to nuke a priority target before they get their turn. Now destruction set is another way you can use, more as an endgame build really. With this, she can dish out tons of damage, and the fact that she gets a crit chance boost from her passive makes it easier to build her more crit damage. For 2-pair sets, you can use either health sets, immunity set for PvP and Guild War, or unity set for PvE contents. Dual attacks can make a big difference for Luna, not only for her damage output but also to decrease the cooldown from her S3. When she performs a dual attack, this also decreases the S3 cooldown depending on the number of hits. Now the main stats for necklace, ring and boots, this depends on which set you choose to give her. If you are using speed set, you can get crit damage for necklace, attack percentage for ring, and speed for boots. With these main stats, you are likely going for a fast wyvern run and someone you can use to soften a target or even nuking them out in PvP if they are really squishy. You can also switch speed boots to attack percentage boots for more damage, and this is something you might want to consider if her gears gives a decent amount of speed. At least try to get her speed to, I don't know, 150 or 160. I think that should be enough. Now if you are not using speed set, let's say you are using destruction set, it would be best to give her speed stat boots, attack percentage ring, and always crit damage necklace if you want to bring her to PvP and Guild War. If not, then just follow what I am currently using for my Luna: crit damage necklace, attack percentage ring, and attack percentage boots. Now this kind of setup is more catered towards PvE content, so Hall of Trials and Spirit Altars, those kind of things. Now with this being said, you can still use her in PvP, but this requires more of a strict team composition. If you have someone that can push Luna to the front, then this is something that you can use. Most notably auxiliary lots. It would be a good one for Luna to take out squishy targets, but if you don't have any of that, then it might be best to just give Luna some speed. Now let's have a look at artifacts, starting from 5-star. There is one that came out recently. I think it came out with the Luna banner, and that is Draco plate. What this does is that it gives Luna extra crit damage, 15% at base and 30% at max, as well as reducing damage suffered from critical hits up to 16%. Of course, the extra crit damage will boost her overall damage and her one-shotting capability. Now the artifact does say when more than one similar effect is granted, only the strongest is applied. Now I don't think this affects her passive at all, so I don't think there's any clash. I mean, it doesn't make sense to add this artifact along with Luna if there was a clash, so I don't think this is the case. Now the only one I can think of as of right now is that it may not work with Adamant Shield. As far as I know, it's not an artifact that a lot of people use, so you can probably just ignore this fact. Another artifact I want to talk about is C&D. The effects of this artifact is that there's a 10% up to 20% chance for skill cooldown not to occur. With Luna's S3 being at 10 turn cooldown, it may seem like it's a good pair for Luna, right? And I guess you can definitely use this. However, there is one thing that you may want to consider before using this artifact. It's mostly because of Luna's S1. If you guys want to take a look for yourself, check Luna's S1 and S3 damage on Epic 7 damage calculator. No matter what stat values you give to Luna, her S1, when it hit twice, is close to in damage compared to her S3. And her S1, when it hits 3 times, is close to in damage compared to her S3 with Sovereign. Since her S1 hits are random, I'll have to assume it's 33% chance of getting either 1, 2, or 3 hits. If you look at it this way, there's a 2 out of 3 chances of replicating her S3 damage using her S1. The advantage, of course, is her S3 will always use a dominant element with a chance to apply defense break, and if this artifact triggers in a PvP environment, this will give you another turn to nuke a second target. The disadvantage is that it's not really reliable since the trigger chance is only at 20%. However, having said that, in PvP, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but a lot of things doesn't seem to follow rules, like counter sets triggering multiple times in a row. Who knows, maybe you could do the same with this artifact. In my opinion though, I'd stick to something that would boost her damage rather than a utility artifact like C and D. Now Sigurd's Scythe is another option you can use. When her HP is below 50%, she gets a damage boost as well as lifesteal up to 50% of her damage dealt. Now this works well if she has a good amount of HP, 11 to 12k at least. You have a lot of room to give her HP stats anyway, since her passive already gives her a lot of crit hit chance, and the fact that it also reduced damage suffered from crit hit damage makes sure that she survives long enough to heal back up from this artifact's lifesteal. What makes this artifact so good is that it has both offensive and defensive effects, and not many artifacts have both in one. Rebellious Tooth is another one, but this is something you will use if you don't have anything else. If Luna crits, it will inflict additional damage proportional to her attack. Compared to other artifacts like Sigurd and Draco, this is somewhere on the bottom, but the good thing about this is that this works really well against tanky teams. Pretty much any units that scales proportional to defense can work, since players are more likely to build more defense over HP. The reason why this is good against tanky units is because the additional damage is treated as true damage, which means it's not affected by damage reduction or enemy defense. However, because players prefer HP over defense, this is the reason why this artifact is rarely used, especially in a PvP environment. For 4-star artifacts, Portrait of the Saviors is good to bump up Luna's damage so she can one-shot units. Other than that, there's nothing else to say about it really. Mostly used in PvP, but can also be used in PvE contents to one-shot bosses for faster runs. I mean, if you want, you can probably use this against the Wyvern. Hell's Cutter is good to use if you don't have enough crit chance on Luna. Not only that, but the extra attack from this will also help in one-shotting squishy units. This is best used if your Luna is slow, I'd say somewhere around 140. Also, if you want, you can use this artifact on a more faster Luna, as long as she's the slowest one in your team. Now looking through 3-star artifacts, Joker is always good for PvE, especially when doing Wyvern hunts. Relatively cheap to max and obtain, so this is probably one of your go-to artifacts when using Luna to any PvE contents. Tonfa is a cheap version of Portrait of the Saviors, pretty much good for bumping up Luna's damage. Ancient Sheath is okay to use, I guess. From the damage calculator, we know that Luna's S1 and Luna's S3 are close in damage. Well, if you get 2 or 3 hits from Luna's S1, then it's pretty close. With this artifact, her S1 damage will probably do more. And I would only use this in PvE though, since long runs means she will be spamming her S1. Don't use this in PvP, it doesn't work. So you've got a well-built Luna. Where can we use her? Well, anywhere really. She's like the equivalent of Vildred, but more specialized in bosses, if that makes sense to you. She can do Wyvern Hunt, Spirit Altar, Hall of Trials, higher floors in Tower Automaton if you need a team to clear it, and also PvP and Guild War. Now keep note that using Luna in Raid is good for clearing, but in terms of maximizing morale, may not be the best unit. Now this is because her compatibility with most units are either very low or bad. The highest she can give is 5 morale points when choosing Reality Check. That's it. Pretty sad, but if you just want to get it out of the way and clear it, then she is a good unit to bring. For Wyvern Hunt, she's one of the units that you can use in a 3-man team. Really good for leveling up fodder units fast, and at the same time collect gears from Wyvern Hunts. But this is only possible with really good gear and I'd say strict team composition. I'd say for an example, a 3-man can consist of Luna as your damage dealer, Diane, someone that buffs Luna, especially attack and tank the Wyvern hits, and Furious for defense break, and also crit buff for Luna. So these 3 would definitely work against Wyvern if you have them. So yeah, that's all I have to share regarding Luna. She's a great unit to have, and for me, worth enhancing all her skills. For now though, I'm keeping her away from PvP since I'm building her more towards a 3-man team for Wyvern. For now it's still on the works, and also she's a good backup for Guild War when attacking, so it's all good. There's plenty of contents where I can use her in, so it keeps her busy. And with that, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in another Epic 7 video. Alright, cheers. Rover out.